Welcome and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. After the presentation, we will conduct a question-and-answer session. At that time, you may press star 1 to ask a question. Today's conference is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would now like to turn the call over to Pat Kerwin. You may begin.
Thank you, and welcome to everybody on the phone call as well. This is sort of a beginning session we wanted to have, and wanted to thank all the folks for signing up to this phone call for the deck members in particular. And it's sort of our way, we were thinking about, of giving back to all the services that you provide. Those of us in the commercial service, the department, and I know I'm talking to the secretary, he's very thankful for all the help that you've given us, not just the commercial service in the department, but exporters as well, in really helping to support the goals of the administration of doubling U.S. exports. One of the things that we heard a lot in Las Vegas, and it's just you're seeing the results of this, is this teleconference call, a lot of concern or questions about FTAs and the opportunities at FTAs and how we can help U.S. companies realize or take advantage of the opportunities that exist because of these free trade agreements. And I know the shop here in Manufacturing and Services in the Department of Commerce had done a lot of work with us throughout last spring and through the winter of last year, and then into the spring to develop this FTA web tool, which Praveen will be talking about in just a minute. And I think they've gotten a lot of great reviews on this web tool and about how useful it is. And so we felt like this was a good result of your concerns raised at Vegas about wanting to get out more information about FTAs, combined with this product that they've developed. We felt like this is a good opportunity to have a dialogue, and for the Manufacturing Services group here to sort of present to you the tool that they have that we think is going to be very helpful. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Praveen Dixit, who's the Deputy Assistant Secretary in Manufacturing Services, and his office is really the one responsible for the tool. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat, and thank you all for participating in our webinar today. Assistant Secretary Nicole Lamhill really wanted to come in and welcome all of you, but she got called away to a meeting at the last minute, and so she sends her regards and her welcome also. As many of you are aware, I'm sure, President Obama's National Export Initiative, or the NEI as we call it over here, is a little over 2 years old, and we're making great progress towards the goal of doubling exports within 5 years. Some of you may know that our trade data was released last week, and that data shows that we're making significant progress towards meeting that goal of doubling exports and reaching, in fact, for the first time, a record $2 trillion mark for the year. So great progress has been made in that front. Now, once you go beyond the overall exports, many of you are also aware that the U.S. free trade agreements are an important part of our export initiative. Currently, 17 countries have committed to eliminating their tariffs and reducing the non-tariff barriers, given the U.S. an export advantage over the countries vis-a-vis these markets. Three more agreements, those on Korea, Colombia, and Panama, have been ratified by Congress and are awaiting implementation. So we have several free trade agreements coming along, and that which will all help U.S. exports. Our FTA partners are very attractive to U.S. companies, especially small and medium businesses, because our trade agreements help reduce costs and provide additional transparency and ease of doing business. So we all are cognizant of the fact that these free trade agreements will be especially important for the small and medium enterprises. At our agency, the International Trade Administration, we recognize that smaller companies need easy access to information to take advantage of these market opportunities. And information is certainly a really key component of what makes exports sell. ITA produces a number of reports and tools that help address this issue by making information regarding tariff and other benefits of FTAs readily available. And today, several of my staff over here will share with you opportunity reports, as we call them, that highlight the benefits of the recently passed FTAs with Korea, Colombia, and Panama. It appears that this is the perfect time for American companies to learn more about the opportunities that U.S. negotiators worked hard to achieve. These reports will give companies a great overview of how these agreements impact their industry and their state. So, hopefully this interaction this afternoon will help you get a lot more information on that. My staff will also demonstrate a great new tool that Pat referred to that we launched last year, the Fta Tariff Tool. This tool takes thousands of pages of Fta tariff schedules and distills them via a simple search tool that will help companies determine the exact tariff that their goods will face in an Fta partner market. And this tool, once you see it, will see how it really helps you lower your costs also. This tariff tool will also help you to research recent trends in exports in Fta partner countries. My staff will demonstrate how you can use the functions to enhance your market research. So overall, we found it to be a very helpful tool. That's what we've been told, and my staff over here will help you sort of get educated on these things. I'm excited to have this opportunity to share our reports and tools with you today. We think these tools and these resources will help U.S. companies, both big and small, and especially the small ones, take advantage of new opportunities in our Fta partner markets. We look forward to working with the U.S. Foreign Commercial Service, Pat, thank you, and the District Export Council members to help U.S. companies export and take advantage of our trade agreements. And so again, thank you and welcome to this session, and please stay in touch through CS and enjoy the afternoon. Thank you.
Okay, on October 21st, 2001, President Obama signed legislation implementing the trade agreements with Korea, Colombia, and Panama. The legislatures of Korea, Colombia, and Panama have now ratified these agreements. Before the agreements can be implemented, each country must be able to demonstrate that it is in compliance with those obligations that will take effect on day one. What each country must do depends on its specific laws and regulations. The implementing bills from October 2001 contain all changes to U.S. law necessary to bring the United States in compliance with the agreement. Now, the length of time necessary to implement the trade agreements varies, but President Obama is committed to bring these agreements into force as soon as possible so we can start to reap the benefits at home. Now, following the entry into force of each agreement, work will continue to ensure that Korea, Panama, and Colombia remain in compliance with its immediate obligations and comes into compliance with the obligations that will take effect later. Now is the, like Praveen said, now is the perfect opportunity for U.S. companies to learn about the recently passed FTAs and to prepare to take advantage of the new market access resulting from these agreements. ITA has prepared state and industry opportunity reports for FTAs of Korea, Panama, and Colombia. These reports highlight the broad economic benefits of these agreements and the specific tariff and non-tariff commitments that each of our FTA partners took on an industry basis. So right now I'm going to turn this over to Michael Green and Rebecca Gudicello to show you the state and sector reports. And just before I go, I'm Patrice Kelly, and I forgot to say that before starting.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. My name is Mike Green. I'm going to run you through briefly some of the resources and reports that we came up with in support of the free trade process. You see on the screen here some of the links to the FTA sites. I'm going to switch over to those now. This is Fta Central here, basically, where we have, if you see on the left side there, all of the FTAs in force, and then as Praveen had mentioned, the pending ones coming up. There's some overview information, some little facts that people may not have realized about the importance of FTAs to our trade in general. This is the Colombia homepage, one of the pending FTAs, and as you can see, you have a list here of the industry opportunity reports or the sector reports, and then underneath it you have 50 state reports. I'm going to focus mainly on the state reports. We'll take a look at the Florida report for Colombia. Florida, I believe, is the largest exporter to Colombia from the U.S. And as you can see, it's a one-page document, so it's very brief, very concise. We've tried to distill down what we thought was the most important information for exporters. It's often used in the political process. We send it to the Hill, to governors, to trade associations all over the place. So what you'll see in just a couple of columns is you'll have some duty information on, the impact of the tariffs, how much it's going to save, what it's going to increase our exports by. There's some kind of Colombia-specific information on one side about, how many people they have, where they purchase things from. On the other column, you'll have some Florida-specific information. You'll have, their shipments of merchandise, how many companies are exporting goods from there, how many of those are SMEs, small and medium-sized firms. As Praveen had mentioned, we try to keep a pretty tight focus on the SME exporter, trying to give them kind of a little advantage there. So as you can see, for example, for Florida, SMEs play a huge role. It's almost two-thirds of exports from Florida are via SMEs, which is very substantial. And then we'll have a little pie chart in the section here about the kind of the trade profile from Florida to, in this case, Colombia, and it's an average over, this data is 2008 to 2010, a 3-year average, which brings up an important point. These documents were created as like a snapshot in time. They're not currently being updated, so we do have more current information on a lot of this data. It was just designed to do, be an overview, not a living document, as it were. But at the end, I'll very briefly show some of the other sources that you can use to get real-time information on a lot of this stuff. Then down at the bottom, you can see also that the Department of Agriculture works up a bunch of sheets on the impact on agriculture, which again, for a state like Florida is fairly significant when it comes to free trade agreements. Finally, I just want to highlight one of our resources. Maybe some of you are familiar with what we call Trade Stats Express, which is a simple interactive tool to get U.S. trade data. I'll just do one here run just so you can see briefly what it looks like. And that's basically it. This is showing U.S. exports around the world. 2010, Canada's our largest market, Mexico. A lot of the trade information that you see in the sector, in the state reports, was generated via Trade Stats Express. And I will hopefully in the future get a chance we could set up a webinar or have another discussion. We can talk about other resources we have. We have information on exports by metropolitan area. We have what we call the exporter database, which is a kind of a profile of companies by size. We have state import information. We have a whole host of tools and reports to help exporters gather information. And now I will turn it over to Rebecca.
Great, thank you. On the opposite side of the state reports, we have also produced industry opportunity reports that are highlighting the benefits of the 3 recently passed FTAs with Korea, Colombia, and Panama. I'm going to show you, if you follow the main FTA page off of trade.gov, you have the links here, and if you click on Korea, it opens up a separate page where we have all of our information about the U.S.-Korea FTA. If you scroll down, you can see we have a large section on the industry opportunity reports. These are the particular sectors that we have highlighted. And if you click on one, I'm going to show chemicals. We open up a 2 to 3 page report. These reports, as Mike said, were done at the time of the conclusion of the negotiations of the agreement, and we think they provide a useful snapshot of the commercial benefits that U.S. negotiators achieved in the free trade agreements. For all three FTAs, the structure is fairly similar. Each of these reports has an overview of commercial opportunities, information about each sector, and with a lot of trade data and other statistics about the importance of the sector top exports. A section on the new market access opportunities, and I'll come back to this section in much more detail in just a few seconds. The Korea and Colombia reports also have a section about foreign competition. This highlights other FTAs that Korea and Colombia have and really shows why it's important for the competitiveness of our companies for the U.S. to implement these FTA agreements. And last but not least, we have another section on other non-tariff commitments that will benefit each of these sectors from the agreements, and I'll come back to that in just a second. And for Korea only, we also have some opportunity stories. These are stories from real small exporters about how the FTA with Korea will benefit them. So these are some great inspirational stories. So what we find is one of the most important parts of our opportunity reports for the sector is this improved market access for U.S. chemicals. And in each of our sector reports, we provide an overview of the new market access for U.S. exporters. This will give you kind of a snapshot of how the tariffs will be phased out, and other information about our FTA partners' current tariffs. Justin, in just a few minutes, will show you the Fta Tariff Tool, and at that time, you'll be able to find out specific information on individual products. Our reports are at the sectoral level. So you can see for chemicals, you can see that the Korean market currently has tariffs that average 6.1%, and they go as high as 50%. Both in writing and in this graphic, you can see what share of U.S. exports to Korea in the chemical sector will be duty-free immediately after the agreement has been implemented, within 3 years, within 5 years, within 10 years. These are what we call the phase-in baskets. And this allows companies to start preparing and planning for the impact of the free trade agreement on their exports. For some sectors, including chemicals, we also break down this information into subsectors. Chemicals is a very diverse industry, so we also highlight the phase-in periods and the current tariffs for certain sectors like pharmaceuticals. You can see that for pharmaceuticals, 48% of U.S. exports in pharmaceuticals to Korea will be eliminated immediately after the agreement goes into force, and the remaining 52% of tariffs on U.S. exports in terms of trade will be eliminated within 3 years. Moving on to another section that we think is really helpful for U.S. exporters is the other key commitments for the chemical sector. We have highlighted other aspects of the free trade agreement, including the provisions that deal with rule of law, transparency, good governance, and other issues that complement the market access provisions, such as standards, intellectual property rights, and rules of origin. And each sector has different summaries. We've focused on the parts of the agreement that are most important and applicable for each sector. And you can see here for the chemical sector, we've highlighted rules of origin, intellectual property rights, and special provisions on pharmaceuticals. These are other aspects of the free trade agreement that will help to facilitate increased U.S. exports and further open up the Korean market. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Justin Hoffman. He's going to tell you about our fairly new Fta Tariff Tool and show how you can find even more detailed information about market access for your products.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. As Rebecca and Mike kind of explained some of our sector and state opportunity reports, as they noted, they kind of give a overview of the market access benefits under our FTAs, our pending FTAs. What I'm about to show you with the Fta Tariff Tool is kind of getting into the weeds. What does this mean for your actual products? So you can see here, the Tariff Tool's address is www.export.gov/FTA/Fta Tariff Tool. So I can just jump over to that. And when you land on the home page, this is what you'll see. There's actually a very helpful video there that explains how to use the tool. But before I actually jump into a demonstration of it, I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of background on how our free trade agreements are negotiated and kind of explain which will help explain some of the pieces of the tool and also why the tool we're so excited by, why it's so useful. Typically, when the United States negotiates a free trade agreement, we break the goods negotiations into 3 chunks: agricultural goods, textile goods, and everything else, which we call industrial goods. At the moment, the Fta Tariff Tool only covers the industrial goods section of our FTAs, though industrial goods account for about 90% of total U.S. exports to our FTA partners. We are working to expand the tool and eventually include agricultural and textile products. Now, when our FTAs are negotiated, we sit down with the partner country and work out how long will it take to eliminate the tariff. And usually they're broken into periods of years such as immediate, 5 years, 10 years, and so on. Negotiators seek to eliminate the majority of tariffs immediately upon implementation of the agreement. This database covers those products, and it also covers the products that are subject to longer tariff eliminations. Now, if you wanted to go about the old way of finding out what your tariff is under an FTA, I can give you a quick demonstration of that. So say you were interested in exporting fire extinguishers to Peru. Well, you would have to go and find the tariff schedule under the U.S.-Peru FTA, which I happen to have here, and you would have to know what your tariff code, your HS code is for your product. And if you scroll through this document, which is 406 pages long, you'll eventually find your product, which I happen to know is 842410. And when it eventually searches and finds it, you'll see that under the U.S.-Peru FTA, Peru charged a 12% tariff on fire extinguishers. And the tariff elimination category is C. Now, to figure out what C means, you'd actually have to go to another section of the agreement and find that means that products in category C are eliminated in 10 equal stages beginning on the date the agreement enters into force and shall be duty-free on January 1st of year 10. So then you have to know, well, when did the agreement go into effect and how far into the agreement are we? And you'd have to pull out your calculator and figure out what the tariff on your fire extinguishers is today. So you can see how a lot of companies and a lot of exporters could get frustrated with this process, especially the smaller exporters. Now, with the tariff tool, we just go in to the What's My Tariff section. It'll ask you, are you importing or exporting? So we're going to be exporting fire extinguishers to Peru. I know that the HS code is 842410. And this is, the result that you'll get. And you'll notice that the description right now is in English because the tool is built off of the official schedules negotiated under our free trade agreements. So if you click for more details, you'll see that this product, immediately you see, here's your tariff code, here's the Peruvian description. We've also included a subheading description. This is at the 6-digit tariff line level in English. You'll see that this is in the 10-year tariff staging basket, and it will be completely duty-free in 2018. And at a glance, you know that in 2012, your tariff on fire extinguishers is now 7.2%. So you can see how much faster using the tariff tool can be and how much easier it can be. If you scroll down towards the bottom, you also notice that there's some links right now to the rules of origin, because in order to take advantage of the agreement, you have to meet the rules of origin for fire extinguishers, for example, specified in the agreement. And right now, the tool will link you to those chapters of the agreement. Our eventual plan is to actually have the Fta Tariff Tool display that specific rule of origin right there below the tariff information. So, now, if you don't know what your HS code is, we've included a link on the main page to the U.S. Census Bureau's Schedule B search engine. We found that this was a helpful tool that could help you find the HS code. In the tariff schedules, as many of you know, the descriptions are almost very specific. And so words like car or computer don't actually appear, because those are referred to as passenger motor vehicles and automatic data processing machines. Well, the Census Bureau's Schedule B search engine is kind of a smart search engine, and so it'll ask you if you're exporting a battery, for example, it'll ask you, is the battery for a car or for an electronic device? Is it a lithium battery or is it an alkaline battery? And it'll help you find what your HS code is. Now, not only is the tariff tool useful for finding out what current tariffs are, but also for what future tariffs will be under, say, our pending agreements with Korea, Colombia, and Panama. So if I were to search for the same exact product exporting to Korea, you'll notice that Korea charges an 8% tariff on U.S. exports of fire extinguishers, and that under the U.S.-Korea FTA, that tariff will be eliminated over 3 years. Now, because the agreements have not yet been implemented, we don't know, with 100% certainty what year one will be. It could be 2012, could be 2013, but you'll see that 3 years after the U.S.-Korea FTA goes into effect, that tariff will be completely eliminated. Now, another area that the tariff tool really excels is for the few products that are subject to non-linear tariff phase-outs. For the most part, under U.S. free trade agreements, the tariffs are reduced in equal steps over the elimination period. But for certain sensitive products, the tariffs may be eliminated very small cuts in the initial years and larger cuts in the later years. So for a quick example here, this is a soap product under the U.S.-Panama FTA. And you'll notice right away that it's noted as being in the 10-year nonlinear staging basket. And so what that means is that the tariff is, as you can see, cut in very small increments, half of a percentage point between year one and year two. And then the size of the cut gets bigger and bigger until the tariff is eventually eliminated in 2010. So you can just imagine if you were doing this the old way, how much more difficult your calculations would be for these products that are subject to the nonlinear tariff elimination. Now, the tariff tool also has two other sections to it. There are the market access reports, and there's the tariff and trade snapshots. These take the tariff information and kind of mix it with some of the trade data to give you the ability to kind of analyze specific sectors or markets. So we'll start with the market access reports. And let's say we were interested in exporting to chemicals to Peru. So from here, you select exports, your country that you're interested in, and then you can either select a sector from the pull-down list, or you can select by chapter of the harmonized tariff schedule. And either way, it'll give you the results in the same format. So let's select chemicals. And this is the results page. And you'll notice on the left-hand side of the table, it breaks down the share of U.S. exports, the share and the value of U.S. exports in 2010 of chemicals that fall into each of the tariff elimination baskets. And then on the right side are the number of tariff lines that fall into those baskets. And what you can do from here is you can see that there's 19 tariff lines that Peru had put into a 7-year basket. And if you're interested in finding out, okay, well, what are those products, you can click on the basket category, and you'll get the tariff codes, the descriptions. Again, they're in Spanish because this is the Peru agreement. You can see what the tariff was at the beginning, before the FTA went into effect, and then you can actually see the tariff phase-outs year by year. And so in 2012, this 12% tariff on, looks like paints here, is down to 5.1%. And so there's a couple pages of results here. The market access reports also allow you to kind of compare across FTAs. So say I was interested in looking at the Australia and the Chile FTAs. Just by holding down the control key, you can select more than one country. And we're going to select chemicals again. And the top table here is the value of U.S. exports to Australia and to Chile by the staging categories. And then there's also the number of tariff lines by the staging categories, followed by a couple bar charts kind of showing the differences between the two agreements. And so for your own research, you can see, well, it looks like Australia put all of its tariff lines on chemicals into the immediate staging category. Chile looks like may have been more sensitive on certain products, and it put some products into the 4-year and the 8-year categories. Now, if we go back to the tariff and trade snapshots, this will give you a little bit more detail on the trade trends and also kind of where the tariffs are under the various agreements. So let's go back to our Peru chemicals example. And what this does is it will first display all of the chapters that fall into the chemical sector. And then from here, you can see, okay, for the pharmaceutical products, Chapter 30, before the agreement went into effect, the average tariff that Peru charged on U.S. exports was 12%. As of 2012, though, the average on the whole chapter has actually been reduced to 0.5 percentage point. And you can see for pharmaceuticals as a whole how the trade has increased going back to 2006 all the way up through 2010, which is the most recent year-end data we have available. If you were interested in more detail, you could click on the chapter number, and you can get some a little bit more detailed information at the 6-digit level. So we have vaccines for human use, vaccines for veterinary use, for example. You can see the tariff on those was 12. By 2012, it's already been eliminated. And then you can see kind of how the trade has changed over the years. So that is the tariff tool in a nutshell. As I had explained earlier, we're working to include detailed rules of origin information in the database. And we're also working with our colleagues in the textiles office and over at the agricultural department to include their products into the database so that it will eventually include all goods. We're also working, I know there's some folks on the line that are interested in agricultural and food products. We're also working to have the database account for tariff rate quotas and safeguards, which are usually found on certain agricultural products. And then finally, once the FTAs with Korea, Colombia, and Panama are implemented, the database will be updated to show when the implementation dates are, and you can see, okay, when is year 3, when is year 10, and so forth. So if I was just going to finish, if you go back to the main tariff tool page, just to highlight there, on the left-hand side, there's a quick start guide, kind of a quick run-through of everything I just explained. There's some documentation on kind of explaining the tool. And there's also an email address that you can send questions or comments about the tool. So thank you for your time, and I'm going to turn it back to Catrice and Mike now.
I'm just going to briefly go over some of the other resources that we have. I mentioned a lot of them before, and I can actually take you to we have a kind of a statistics homepage. And as I had mentioned, I demoed the trade stats before, and I had mentioned some of the other resources we have: state imports, top trade partners. Then we have some special reports that we'll do on services, free trade agreements, SME profiles. These are interactive databases. The exporter database, exports from metropolitan areas, which are a fairly new series. State reports, which are very similar to the FTA state reports, but instead of focusing on a particular FTA partner, it's trade with the world, and some export-related jobs showing the impact of exports on jobs, on producing jobs, and another manufacturing report that we call the update, which is an overview of current economic indicators with a specific focus on manufacturing. And as I had mentioned earlier, hopefully in the future we'll be able to set up a webinar and specifically dive into to some of them. Turn it back over to Rebecca.
Okay. Also listed here are some other resources on export finance, international logistics, help with trade problems, and we've also included the links for the USDA opportunity reports. We've noticed that many of you cover agricultural products, and these reports will give you similar information on the agricultural sectors. That's it for today. We'd like to thank all of you for participating, and we will be sharing all of the links that we provided here with all of you. So if anyone has any questions, we're here.
Start the Q&A portion of the event, please.
If you would like to ask a question, please press *1. To withdraw your question, press *2. Again, if you would like to ask a question, please press *1. The first question comes from Daniel Ogden.
Thanks. I have one question. I see on here that you've got two different sites, export.gov/FTA and trade.gov/FTA. That's a little bit confusing. Why the two different sites, and what is the difference in terms of the FTA information on both different sites?
Okay, export.gov is for exporters. It's an interagency site, so it's staffed by all of the sort of trade agencies. So you've got information there from commerce, agriculture, customs, and so it's geared toward traders. Trade.gov is more of a sort of inside the beltway site, and it's more for trade professionals and I don't want to say lawyers, but trade professionals and more of DC types.
And Trade.gov is also the homepage for the International Trade Administration, and it includes, all of our policy issues and all of our resources. And there is some overlap with export.gov, so we hope that by providing you some of the links, you can find the products you need directly. And of course, if you ever have any questions about our websites, please feel free to contact any of the people who are here today. We'll put our contact information up in a minute, or any of your colleagues, people you know in the UZX or the commercial service. We'll all be able to help point you in the right direction.
Thank you.
The next question is from Sandy Winans.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we could get a copy of the PowerPoint, or at minimum at least a copy of all the links that were listed within the PowerPoint.
Yes, we will be circulating sometime later today or tomorrow definitely the links for the event today, all the ones that we discussed. We're also recording the event with hopes that we can share the webinar with all the participants, as well as other DEC members who are not able to attend. As soon as we figure out the logistics and the technical issues, Ryan will send out more information, including the links, which we'll get to you in short order.
Thank you.
The next question is from Tony Scanio.
Okay. My question is, with the free trade agreements, we can see on the tools that you have here the reduction in the actual tariffs. But is there anything in these agreements that actually helps reduce some of the non-tariff issues that we have? For example, our company manufactures orthodontic equipment, and we export to Korea. And there's quite a bit of registration issues involved with getting our products into that country. So do any of these free trade agreements address those registration issues to where it makes it easier for us to export?
The short answer is sometimes. Often when we set out to negotiate the agreements, we do try to reduce various non-tariff measures like you just explained. With Korea, I'm not familiar with that aspect of the U.S.-Korea FTA, but there are resources we have here, such as the Trade Compliance Center as part of ITA, which is a whole office that's kind of dedicated to helping companies like yours take care of barriers that they're facing in Korea. So Rebecca's going to put up my contact information at the end of the presentation, and so if you want to send me an email, I can make sure it gets to the appropriate person.
And we also have some generic information about the non-tariff commitments that our FTA partners have made under the course of our free trade agreements. Some of them are very specific, like there's a special chapter on pharmaceuticals, some of our general provisions on intellectual property rights that are going to apply to exporters across the board. Some of those brief summaries are included on the second page of our industry opportunity reports. Those, again, can be found at trade.gov/FTA, and on the left-hand side, it's linked to our pages on Korea, Colombia, and Panama. In addition, USTR has provided some summary information on what we call the non-tariff components of our FTAs. We'll make sure to include that link as well with the other links that we send out today.
Thank you.
The next question is from Sean McClung.
I have just a basic question in terms of, do you have any summary pages regarding some of the specific rules or documentation requirements for each of the free trade agreements? Useful for importers or exporters as a reference sheet?
The Department of Commerce doesn't actually have them. Customs should have sheets like that tell you the documentation required for the trade agreements. We can check there and send those links also. And then also some of the other countries also have documentation lists on their websites too.
So we'll pull together a group of links on documentation and rules of origin and include that as well.
Thank you.
The next question is from John Vandy.
Yes, I was curious, and I think the question might have been answered. I was looking to see if you're going to distribute some of the links because I couldn't write them down, but I think that's been addressed.
Yes, we will distribute the links.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next question is from Christina Montcross.
Yeah, it was mentioned that the agreements are different milestones in the process. I believe there was a milestone of ratification, approval, and implementation. Can you just explain the difference between those three milestones and what each stage the three agreements are presently in today?
Okay, at this point, all of the agreements have been signed by the President. So after we negotiate the FTAs, there was a time period where they were basically complete. We were waiting for them to be passed by Congress. So at this point, the implementing legislation to actually implement the FTAs has been passed by Congress, and it's been signed by the President, so it's law. So at this point, we're working with the other countries to get it passed in their legislatures, and that's actually happened with all the agreements. And so we're just waiting to do some of the legal instruments so that we can implement the agreements. So at this point, we've gone through all of the legal steps. We're just doing some procedural stuff before we can actually implement them.
Okay, thank you. So all have been ratified and approved. They're just pending implementation.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Next question is from Catherine McMahon.
My question is specifically in regards to the Panama U.S. Free Trade, FTA. I was wondering if there was any formalization of the acceptance of the certificates of origin that are issued by the Cologne-Free Zone as part of the customs authority for meeting the direct shipped provisions of other free trade agreements. So if we have goods that are made in the U.S. and then stored in Panama and then later shipped down to Chile, if there was any kind of formalization that the leaving of the goods in Panama would be accepted by the end country, even though they are dealing with two different free trade agreements.
I don't believe there's been any sort of procedures to formalize that. Typically, so basically the goods would just be stored in the Cologne-Free Zone. They would not be, there wouldn't be any processing or anything done to them in Panama.
Exactly. We're just merely thinking of using Panama as a distribution center for goods going into South America to shorten the lead time.
Okay. Well, right now there aren't any links between the Panama FTA and the Colombia or Chile FTA. So there wouldn't be any you can't extend the tariff preference. Products would have to meet the rule of origin for the Chile FTA to meet any sort of preference.
Right, which is the entire direct ship provision under customs authority. And that's why I was wondering if there was any kind of inclusion in our free trade agreement with Panama to somehow, I don't know, recognize the Cologne-Free Zone as a legitimate customs authority.
I don't believe so, but we'd have to check.
No problem.
Catrice's email will be provided in just a few seconds, actually. Let me go ahead and do that. If you wouldn't mind, since that is kind of a complicated question, if you wouldn't mind emailing Catrice. She's our expert on rules of origin, and she'll be able to help you or point you in the right direction to other people that might know additional information about that issue.
I appreciate that. Contacts are sometimes all the difference, right? Thank you.
Great. Is there any more questions?
There are no questions at this time.
Great. Well, thank you all very much for participating. We hope you've enjoyed today's webinar. We are very excited to be able to demo our Fta Tariff Tool and show you our Fta State and Opportunity Reports. We hope these resources will be useful to you as you begin to or continue to plan to take advantage of our current and pending FTAs. Again, all of our contact information is provided. Additionally, if you have any questions, you can filter it through Dan. He knows how to reach us. And thank you very much. And just also wanted to, last but not least, encourage you to share these resources with your colleagues, other members of the deck that couldn't be here today. All of these resources are free and available to the public, and we really hope that we can rely on you to help spread the word and help increase U.S. exports. Thank you very much.